G13.
Well, it depends on who you ask. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cubist. My name is Bill Corey. I am the Cubist, and there's only one rule on this show. Joe Sallen from The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, and that is don't say the word that rhymes with duck. And if you're for normal co-host Kimberly Rebia, you apparently break that rule every once in a while. But I'm going to trust that you gentlemen will soldier on and not do that. So, Joe, thank you for joining us. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Bill. I'm really looking forward to this discussion, and I think you've got a pretty star-studded panel here, and I'm definitely not the star.
And I have you. It's great. I know, right? Oh, burn. Terrible. Speaking of
I'd already slammed myself there, Bill. Thank you, man. Thanks for just.
That was like an alley-oop.
That
was like an alley-oop. You put it up there, and I just drove it home. It's cool. Basketball references, I've got them. Speaking of stars, we have Clay Ross from Capstone Games with us today. Hi, Clay. How you doing?
What's up, guys? How you doing, Bill? Doing pretty good.
I'm great. I always wonder if I'm supposed to call you Clay or Clayton. I was introduced to you as Clay, but then you pop up as Clayton.
Oh yeah, I know. That's like the formal name, whatever. Clay is totally fine. So.
And I want to be. Then I want to try and put on like a fake mid-Atlantic accent or something and try and sound super snooty. Clayton, hello, Clayton.
I love it.
Clay, you're awesome. Thanks for joining us tonight. I think if there's nobody that I can think of that I'd rather have on a show about heavy games than the guy behind Capstone Games. So this is going to be good.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, the Ed McMahon to my Arsenio Hall, Mr. Brandon Kemp. How are you, Brandon?
I'm good. How are you doing, Bill?
Good. I love that mixed metaphor never gets a laugh from anybody anymore because nobody's old enough to remember who either Ed McMahon or Arsenio Hall are.
You got to give me a few minutes to laugh, man. I have to Google that stuff.
I guess you got Arsenio Hall, but yeah.
Hang on, let me get the gray in my beard out there a little more so y'all can see how old I really am. There we go.
I don't have my whiskey on me today.
Is that actual gray, or did you do the Just for Men salt and pepper?
No. This is all natural, sir. I earned every last one of these. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, despite all the chaos of the first couple minutes, we are going to get serious and heavy. By the way, here's a quick question: the episode is titled "He Ain't Heavy, He's My Gamer." Joe, did you get that reference?
I did. Yes.
Right,
my dad did so much. I grew up with a younger brother, and it was always, "He ain't heavy, he's my brother." That's what you should be saying, Joseph. You're not to make him cry.
Good. All right.
I made him cry by bringing him to Gaming Hoopla. That's what I did.
Yes, I love it.
He was my partner to go to your convention. Yep.
I love that we have a Hoopla alumni here tonight. This is awesome. We're gonna touch on you a little bit later, Joe, when it comes to the Hoopla. But first,
should I wear a different outfit for that? I didn't know this was that type of podcast.
You don't make it weird, man. That's
too late.
First, before we go too far down this terrifying rabbit hole that we have, let's talk about
heavy games.
Let's talk about some stuff that's not necessarily so heavy. Stuff that we've been playing lately. Let's start. Who's got something they really want to talk about?
Well, I would love to tell everybody in the 3 to 4 minutes I have allotted for myself here about heavy games. I'm not going to get into anything too heavy in that. I'm going to instead talk about Exit the game, The Abandoned Cabin, specifically The Abandoned Cabin. I am making my way through all of the play once and done escape room type games.
Yep.
I've been on the Unlock series, the Escape the Room, Mystery at Stargazer's Manor by Think Fun. And this was kind of my next one that I'm trying out. I've also got the Kickstarter werewolf one that's like really big and has like a $10 refill pack that apparently, so you're destroying things, has locks. Anyway, Exit is the smaller box but destructed game. So in this game, you're going to be just opening it up. You've got no app accompaniment. You're just going to be trying to play your way through a series of 10 different puzzles. The way that puzzles are handled in here does use a decoder ring, but generally the puzzles are going to be using it's actually going to make sense what you're trying to do. I'm not going to give any spoilers here, all right? I'm not going to open the box lid and be like, here's all the different stuff that we did. Now you can solve it. Actually, you can put it. I'm going to be really kind of wishy-washy, and I'm not trying to be vague. Well, I am trying to be vague. So that's not usually what I review like. But anyway, Exit to me, what I'm looking for in an escape room in a box game is is very similar to the actual escape rooms I've paid a lot of money to go to. I've done like 6 or 7 of them. We have a pretty good place here in central Iowa that does escape rooms. And Exit, in the box, I was hoping for a game that's going to give me like a sense of place, a sense of sort of almost a narrative story, and a bunch of interesting puzzles that manipulate things. And more often than not, I like to not know what I'm supposed to do. So
right.
If it gets me stuck, then that's good. And so my overall thoughts on the Abandoned Cabin are, did it deliver in giving me a bunch of interesting puzzles? I think pretty much it did. Did it give me a sense of place? Like, did it have a narrative and a sense of place? I think it really struggled in that, and I was kind of disappointed.
Really?
Specifically by that aspect. And overall, like, would I recommend this one? And you've got a specific rating schedule, like here. You got like a four different increments, right? And it's what is it? Forget it, burn it.
Forget it, or burn it.
Okay, what was the first one?
Buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it.
Buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it. Well, here's what I would say. If you're a huge fan of the escape room games like I am, well, you got to buy this one. I mean, I think that's where it's at. If you're not a huge fan of escape room games and you're not looking for that sort of special event game, definitely forget this one. And it don't matter if you forget it or if you buy it or if you play it, because you're going to be burning it because it's only one play. Yes, that's right, Bill. I chose my review all for one dad joke.
There's nothing wrong with that. So to clarify for listeners/viewers, this specific one is the one that won the Kennerspiel at the Kennerspiel Award this year.
Really?
The Abandoned,
give it to this specific one?
That specific one, the Abandoned Cabin, was the Kennerspiel winner this year.
No, it is not. To me, of the Unlock series, they're just more intense, and I like the intensity. Right. It's because it's a shorter time limit. You actually do like lose technically. It's not like you get a star rating and everybody gets out. So I like the intensity of that. But I've already played one more in the Exit series, and it was vastly superior to this one. I was utterly disappointed by the fact that this had the highest rating on BGG, and I wasn't even aware. I thought it just went to the entire Exit series. I didn't realize this was like, this is the Kennerspiel. So anyway, yeah, for me, at least my perspective, the Pharaoh's Tomb was much more successful in virtually every single metric that I kind of gave there for what I'm looking for. So anyway, yeah.
There you go. There you go. Well, I think the general consensus from what I have heard is that these are sort of an acquired taste, right? You're either going to like them or you're not, just because you're either going to be an exit room guy or you're not. And there's a lot of people that seem to be grumpy about the idea of a one-shot game winning the Kennerspiel. So I think this game has been a little bit polarizing anyway. But hey, we're still talking about it, so they got to be doing something right? So I need to try one of them one of these days. I've still never done. I've done one escape room that they hosted at BGG 2 years ago, and I felt like the dumbest kid in the room. So I've not went out of my way to seek out a whole bunch more, because I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I'm that dumb guy that's just slowing everybody down. This sucks.
I don't think it's so much about being dumb. It's just a lot of it's familiarity with puzzles and logic puzzles. Like if you're the type of person that does puzzles in the paper, or if you're the type of person that did point and click, like if you were able to figure out any of those games like Myst or Escape from Monkey Island, like this is the perfect equivalent in board games. And if you're like me, you didn't figure them out, but that's part of their that's part of their appeal, is that they make me feel dumb. And as a heavy gamer, I'm looking for that.
Nice attempt at a segue, Joe. I appreciate that. That's good. Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. I think this is a different strokes thing, but very cool. All right, who's next?
I think that's me. I will say that Exit game in particular, we managed to not destroy and have passed on. So you can play
it seems like you wouldn't have to, especially this one.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So I don't know about the others. I haven't played them yet. We're going to talk about, I played The Colonists today. I sat there at the table for like 7.5 to 8 hours, and we played a 3-player game of The Colonists just to kind of melt my brain a little bit before we did this. But I'm not going to talk about The Colonists. I'm going to talk about Drop Mix. Because my brain is mush and I really
misdirect.
Drop Mix just came out about a week ago. It's part electronic toy, part card game, is basically what we're going to call it. My wife is staring at me because she's the DJ of the family and she thinks she owns this.
I wanted to talk about this and you said I couldn't.
Anyway, what it is it's an electronic device, and you have cards that play on this electronic device. It has 5 little spots, and each spot will register a different thing. One will be like voice, one will be like drums, one will be like horns, things of that nature. And it mixes the sound, the songs together, and these are actual songs. This is done by Hasbro and
Harmonix.
Yeah,
Harmonix, the guys that did
Guitar Hero and
Guitar
all that
Hero.
stuff. Yeah.
Wait, were they Guitar Hero or Rock Band? Those are
Rock Band. It's one of the two. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you get all the actual music with this, and then it's all run by this app that is Bluetooth to the device, of course. And so this app itself, there are 3 ways you can play it. There's freestyle, which is what we've done most of, is you're just kind of throwing cards on there and seeing what kind of sounds you can make. There is a 2-player head-to-head version where it's a race to 21 points, and the app itself kind of tells you what you're supposed to be playing, and there are certain rules that you have to play cards. Each card has a level. You have to play a level up or equal to, or else you can't play on top of another card. It's a really neat kind of thing how it knows what's on top of each other. Just more fun techie things. But the fun part is the party kind of mode where you can get like up to 5 people together, and each has a hand of 15 cards. And you're basically just mixing music and trying to score as many points as possible based on what the machine is telling you. The app is telling you what to do. It's basically just kind of a matching thing.
Gotcha. Okay.
So each card, of course, has a different color. Each card has the different sounds and everything like that. So the really cool thing is it does make you feel like a DJ, because it will, if I were to throw 5 different songs together, if I had like the capability of doing that right now, it would just sound like a jumbled pile of crap. Because I would not know, I wouldn't mix speeds, I wouldn't do any of that stuff. This does this all for you and kind of just mixes it down to, it'll get the right beats per minute. It'll throw it in the right key and everything for you.
Sure.
So it's just really kind of neat.
So when you said that you would make you feel like a real DJ, I was like, so you'll struggle to pay your rent and you'll end up eating frozen pizza 3 nights a week? Because that's basically what it feels like to be a real DJ.
Especially if I'm relying on people coming to my house and dancing and paying me to do
Exactly.
Which is where it will be played.
So the 2 questions that I think I'm gonna be ballsy and say that I think I can speak for most of the people that want to know about drop mix is besides your rating. Number 1, is it more gimmick or more game?
It is more gimmick.
Okay. But
that's not saying that there isn't a game there if you want to dive in and play it and do things with it. The head-to-head, basically, you can deck build. Like if you play Magic or anything head-to-head like that,
really?
You can kind of deck build and build your cards. You can go out. They've got packs that you buy that are like 5 cards in a pack. You go out and you buy mixes that are like 16 cards. It's all sorts of. It's got a little bit of a collectible aspect to it as well.
Yeah, I've got their official website open on my second monitor over here, and I'm looking at the price. So here's the second question. This game, the base kit is looking like $100 MSRP.
$99.
Yep.
For the device, yeah. For
the base game and the Bluetooth device
cards.
And 60 cards.
Yes.
Then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 card bundles that you can also buy.
Yes.
Which are priced at $1 a card is what it looks like.
Yep. They are $5 a pack.
15 according to this website.
Well, that's the $15 ones are the ones that are the mix packs that are 16 cards in there.
Okay,
right.
So not quite. Those are a little better than $1 a card.
Those are the mix packs, and they're basically when you're deck building and things you have to watch out for. It's basically a deck, pre-built deck is what it is.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. But you can mix and match, and there's no rules to it because we're not playing for money, and there's no magic judges judging us.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you could do basically what you want to, and then there's little 5-pack cards that are kind of themed, and so they'll be like soulful. There'll be kind of weird things like that. So
gotcha. Okay. So then how collectible does this game feel as somebody? Did you just buy in the $100?
I bought in the $100 and like $15 in cards.
Okay.
Because they had some of the $5 packs.
Now I shouldn't buy all the other stuff
because it's not collectible. You know what you're going to get in a pack. Those theme packs have the same 5 cards in them.
Okay.
You just have to find those same 5 cards.
For the record, I meant collectible more like I want to collect them than I did. I need to buy
I want to have each and every damn song that's on there.
So you're going to be doing that? Okay. Well,
Bruce Voge just posted a thing saying like, and it's something I totally would have done. He went before work. He stopped at the Target to get stuff, and then he went to another store on the way back to get more. So it is one of those things. Yes.
And Bruce, like me, works as a DJ. So
Yes.
so this is why I'm asking, because I am trying to figure out how far down this rabbit hole I'm going to end up falling and how badly my bank account's going to end up bruised as a result of it. So
I will not tell anyone to buy it.
Okay.
I will tell someone to play it, and if you know that it's something that you're going to enjoy and it's something that you can sit down and play with, even if you don't care it's a game.
Okay. That's the classic definition of a play it on the Cubist scale. So there you go. Yes, Carenza.
He said she would tell people to buy it.
So Carenza says buy it, you say play it.
I said play it, and then kind of take a second look at it and decide whether you want to buy it or not. Because it's $100 toy basically with a game attached to it.
Gotcha. Very good, very good. Yeah, I want to play it. I want to play it. This is getting added to the list of games I desperately want to try at BGG.
I will.
I know somebody will have this at BGG. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to have it at BGG, but I will take it anywhere. If you stop by the house, you can play it.
Yeah, so. I'll swing by. It's only like 7 hours. That's not bad. I can make it.
It's so doable for a game of drop mix.
All right, point taken. You got it. You got it. All right, Clay. How about you? What have you played lately?
So I've been playing a little bit of heavy stuff lately in preparation for the show. So I actually played the Gallerist. I think that was like a couple years ago from VTOL. So bringing out the old school VTOL, I guess, if you want to call it that. But
probably the prettiest game, I think, overall. That game is just gorgeous.
I like Vinos, the look of Vinos a little bit better, but the art, and I really like what they did with that, with the paintings, how they're actual paintings from different people, and they have just a huge stack of them.
What do you think of the giant rabbit?
The giant, I didn't see that one.
It's just a sculpture of a rabbit. It might be one of the. Yeah, it's just it's weird. It's a giant pig rabbit. Looks like something you'd blow up and put in front of your house for Easter.
Yeah, I didn't see it. So this wasn't my copy. It was one of my buddies, and he bought it at Gen Con 2 years ago and hadn't played it. And I was like, dude, we got to play this since you've never played it. So we broke it out. It was a 4-player game, and it was cool because my wife, who doesn't play heavy games at all, we're going to play Gallerist and then Mombasa right after it. And she's like, I'll play with you guys. And so I was like, you know what, Gallerist is really cool because you're running an art gallery. You're going to be buying some paintings, promoting people. She's like, that sounds like a lot of fun. And so I pulled her in with that, and she actually did really well. She got second place. The guy that taught us, he played it like 7 or 8 times, so he was probably going to win no matter what. But that game was pretty intense. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You got 8 different actions to make, but
and really you have 6 actions you can choose from on any given turn because you're already in one of the spaces.
Yeah, that's true.
So, because it's basically worker placement with only 4 spaces, and you always have to move from one to the next, right? So you can't ever choose the one you're already on.
Yeah, and each space has 2 different actions, but and you can only do 1. But what those actions do, it's hey, you can buy painting, but what does that mean, and what repercussions does that have throughout the game, and what changes how it changes the game state is so phenomenal to me. VTOL had me, I was just kind of swimming there for a second, like on the first few rounds, like I don't understand what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, but like what is the I want to see how everything relates together, especially the end game scoring. And it wasn't until the very end of the game where it really just everything just kind of clicked together, and that end game scoring is beautiful in that game. It is just so smooth and just well integrated. Everything scores, and it just does it in a really nice way. I was super impressed. I didn't think I was going to like it. The first few turns, I was like, God, I don't think I'm going to like this game. And by the end of the thing, I was like, I really want to play this again.
We're going to touch on the difference between complexity and depth, and I think the Gallerist is a great example of where there is a definite line in the sand there, because it is not particularly complex, but it is very deep. It's not hard to understand what you're doing. It's hard to understand why you're doing it in the Gallerist. It was my argument, right? Like, it's easy to go do things and mash buttons. It's hard to figure out why you want to mash any of these buttons.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I really like it. All right. So on the Cubist scale for the Gallerist, buy it, play it, forget it, or burn it.
Because it's so intense, there's a lot of rules overhead. That's the thing with this game is you can't just pack it up and then like a month later break it out and expect to be fresh and ready to go. So some people that might turn them off. I would say try it, because you never know. It's going to be hit or miss for you. That's exactly what that game is going to be.
That's a play it. Yeah, I think I agree. I think that's as much as I adore that game, I played 2 games of it at BGG the year that it came out in the hot games area. The first time I was being taught by a friend of the show, Zen Lao, who lives in Japan and had come over for his first ever American convention, if I recall correctly, was kind enough to teach it. And the second time, the next day, I offered to teach it to other friends of mine. And then Zen wandered over, and I'm like, so I don't suppose you want to play and also teach again? And he's like, sure. And we played again. And I still, second game in, and I still was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I know how to do things. I still don't know why I'm doing anything, but I know how to push the button. So I think I agree. It's for sure. That's awesome. All right. I'm going to skip my turn. And we're going to go straight into our main topic, because we're going a little bit long at this point. But teaser, the game that I'm going to talk about next week has maybe the coolest bits ever, and I'll let you all try and guess what that is in the chat. And I tell you what, everybody gets one guess, and if you guess correctly in the live chat right now, I'll send you a prize or something. We'll figure something out. I don't know.
10,000 points?
Probably. No, I'm keeping my 10,000 points, man. They're right there. I earned those. I had to play a terrible board game at a convention in order to get those. It was real bad. So,
do you miss those guys yet, man?
I do very much. Gold standard in podcasting. Someday I hope to be half as good as they were. So
yeah.
So, all right. So let's get into our main topic, which is heavy games. And I think we've got a fantastic group here to talk about this. But I want to start, whenever we talk about one of these discussion points, I like to try and establish a baseline. And so in this case, what the baseline that I want to try and nail down first is, what is it specifically that makes a game heavy to you? What is, and I know that there are a lot of different factors, but what's the one thing that you think really determines whether a game counts as a heavy game or not? So let's start with Clay, because you are the publisher of heavy games. That's sort of that's your calling card. What makes a game heavy?
What makes the game heavy? The best thing I've got is when you win a game, just going back to the gallerist issue, where you're going to buy a painting or you're going to promote an artist. What are the repercussions of that action throughout the game? How is that going to change the game state? And if there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes for that to happen, that is a heavy game. Arkwright is the same exact example as well. I mean, you can build a factory. Cool. I'm building a bread factory, and I'm going to hire 4 workers or whatever. What's that going to look like a couple turns down the road? How is that going to affect the economy in that game? That is what I love about games, and that's what makes a game heavy to me.
So it's sort of a butterfly effect kind of theory, something where what you do now, what's it going to do later on down the road in the arc of the game?
Yeah, I think that, that's present in every game. Like Concordia is it's not as heavy, but like when you can purchase cards in Concordia, and it's just going to progress the game. But the way that a game really affects the decision scope of other players on a deeper level, and then you can find different strategies based on that decision, I think that really has a much bigger depth with heavier games than with other games. That's kind of where I'm sitting at.
That makes perfect sense. Joe, how about you? What's the thing that makes games heavy to you?
I would agree with what Clay said, and I think that that's a great way to just capitulate everything in a very small amount of time and sentences. And I'm glad that you did that, Clay, because now I can bust this open, because that's what I'm here for, man. That's what I do in podcasting. Like, this is now a heavy podcast.
Oh boy,
because I'm gonna rip this open, and it's because there is very conflicting ideas specifically about what makes a game heavy. Is it just, when you walk into a game store and you look at the table and you're like, ooh, that's a lot of stuff. Like I've had somebody tell
heavy.
Yeah, like it must be heavy. Or if you look and it just looks like people are doing stuff and what they're doing makes no sense to you, that's, I think, the very surface level. Like the person that looked at me and my friends playing a board game and said, you guys play complicated games.
There's it's right now. I mean,
There you go. Yeah, my mom thinks everything I play is complicated. It's all heavy games to my mom.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, like, I like where Clay took this, but I don't think that everybody that would consider themselves a heavy gamer would say that it's just about that. I think a lot of people that play heavy games do so because they like just there being a lot of stuff. And a lot of times that stuff is bells and whistles that doesn't necessarily get you any closer to the end of the, the end destination. Like Clay said, there's a lot of stuff, it seems simple. And then when there's very much more repercussions to what you're seeing, that's like depth, I would say. But there's a lot of people that would consider complexity indicative of a heavy game. And I think that, especially people that are averse to heavy games will think that that's what they're all about. But I think I'm in the same camp as Clay here, that I'm looking for specifically what he said. I'm looking for games that are going to have decisions that are going to have much more impact than what you would immediately see at face value. And they're going to keep you carrying on throughout the rest of it. So, that's actually about as short and concise as I could hope to get with what I would think about being a heavy game. But, there's consensus between me and Clay, but I don't want to for one second suggest that means consensus among all of who would call themselves heavy gamers.
Yeah, I think that's for sure. I think that there are well, and people, what gets defined as a heavy game is a very personal thing as well, because heavy for some people, like I as a great example, before we started the show, Clay had mentioned that he was debating about talking about the Gallerist or Mombasa, and he said he was going to go with the Gallerist because he viewed that as the heavier game. And I started laughing. I'm like, are you kidding me? Because Mombasa made my brain hurt real bad. I consider that a much heavier game, even though the Gallerist is maybe a little bit more difficult to see how the gears interact long-term compared to Mombasa. Mombasa really worked my brain over a lot harder than the Gallerist did. Once you get the hang of the Gallerist, the decisions are fairly simple. It's just a matter of why you want to make which one you do. So I think it's a little bit personal in that regard, but I definitely agree with where you're headed with this. Brandon, how about you? Is there what else have we maybe missed that makes a game heavy?
I don't know. You've covered a lot of things here with it. I had to mute there, honestly, for a second and talk to my daughter. But
it's fine.
Rules can make a game heavy, regardless of what the decision points point you to. But a complex rule book can make everything feel heavy, right? But that doesn't mean
a bad rule book can make everything heavy, even when the game isn't. Well, I rant about this pretty regularly, but I think if your rule book sucks, you are like that adds levels of complexity that isn't necessarily there.
So, I think barriers to entry is what you're talking about. Like that can make it feel heavy. I'm sorry, Brandon. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I mean, I was going to bring up any GMT rulebook feels heavy to me. It doesn't, regardless of the outcome.
It covers everything, man.
It looks like I'm reading schematics half the time. So
it'll put you to sleep, man.
It will. But when you get down to brass tacks, a lot of them aren't that complex, or they're not. I mean, sure, there are some that are, but like Thunder Alley, I play a lot. It's not that complex of a game. I don't need a 46-page rule book drawing everything out for me, but that's what I get.
Except for you do.
So I don't know. I have a hard time handling and diving in and saying exactly what is heavy. I know heavy when I play it because
it's like porn. You know what it is when you
see it. You
can't actually define it. Yeah.
So this is that type of podcast.
Well, sometimes.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Colonist is a breeze to teach.
Yeah.
But my God, by the third age, I'm mush. And I'm just hoping that I've got it put together in the right way.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the things that we're gonna come back and touch on later is I think the mark of a really great heavy game is when there is that depth and the impact of previous actions on future play, but without so much rules overhead that you can't remember how to do things, right? You get past the how and into the why faster.
Exactly.
And I think that's really the mark of great games, which is and partially there's also an intuitiveness of some of them, right? Like the better heavy games are based on a thing that we all already understand. So we'll talk about Arkwright in an effort to shamelessly pander to our publisher friend that's on the show. Arkwright works so well because everybody understands supply and demand. Everybody gets that if there is a demand for something and nobody's supplying it, then prices go up, right? And if too many people are supplying something, then prices go down and suck, right? Everybody gets how that works. So economic things are something, at least in capitalist 2017 USA, we all understand the basics, right, of how this thing works, which means part of the why has been provided for you by the real world. Whereas something like the gallerist, even though it's mechanically fairly simple, buying paintings and hanging them in an art gallery, not the most intuitive thing that we all get to experience on the daily, right? Like, I would say if I get to an art museum once every 5 years, I'm a very happy man. And I definitely have never been like, which one am I going to buy and take home with me? You know? Yes, exactly. Look, that's the closest thing to art that I get. All right. I have a Cubist sticker. It's very exciting. And I have 10,000 points.
By the way, that's just dogs playing poker back there. So don't worry about it.
That works. That works. So I think that's part of it as well, is how is, and that's maybe what makes it great. Let me ask you this though. What is it that causes you to gravitate towards your games? And I'm going to jump in and go first on this one, because for me, I always say a thing that I don't feel like other people understand, which is the satisfaction of the amount of time I put in. The more longer games for me, I feel like I have earned the thing that the game ends up being, right? Like there's a sense of accomplishment that comes with the amount of time I spend playing it. And so for me, I know that's why I gravitate towards them. When I play, and I know there are a lot of gamers that feel the exact opposite, that I've been told how many times, why would I want to play 1 4-hour game when I can play 2 2-hour games or 4 1-hour games or whatever? And the answer is, to me, because the 4-hour game's probably more satisfying, but it isn't for everybody, right? For me, it's that 4 hours has been spent investing into this big thing that at the end of it, it'd be like, oh, that was so cool, you know, and I get to have that weird little giggly moment. How about you? Going backwards to the list, Brandon, what caused you to gravitate towards heavier games?
You know me, I'm not a heavy gamer. Right. I play heavy games every now and then because I like to challenge myself every now and then, but I always gravitate back to those hour-long medium weight Euros more than anything. So yeah, that's more or less what brings me to heavier games, is just kind of the challenge of thinking a little bit differently and pushing the envelope a little bit, so to speak.
Okay, so for you, it's a break from the norm.
It is.
You're doing something off the path from where you usually are.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, but it's also more of a challenging break for the norm. It's not just I'm gonna play 20 minutes of Loop and Louie. I'd rather do something the other direction.
Gotcha.
Oh.
All right, Joe, how about you?
I had this discussion, kind of the same question I posed to several of my friends, because I don't consider myself an expert on heavy games per se, but I'm certainly surrounded by them. So one of them made the statement that it's kind of like doing the pinnacle of the specific hobby. Like if you're into antique cars, like building your own car, like building it piece by piece is the way that they feel when they're playing like a heavier game, as opposed to just scratching the surface by, buying a car that's already fixed up. You've got to get through that rule book. A lot of times with these heavier games, you even have to rewrite the rule book and do a much better job. Hey, Clay, that's you.
Okay.
Yeah, you've actually got to take that rule book, learn how to make it actually say things that make sense. And this is work that a lot of guys, like my buddy Andy, that I podcast with, he only gets to game like 4 hours a week, usually 4 to 6 hours a week. But he spends a lot of time like making print and plays, making rules aids, reading rule books. I mean, these are the types of games that you can just sink your teeth into, and it takes a lot of that time, and he feels extremely rewarded, like you said, Bill, in doing that. And I would say, though, that I come at it from this perspective of every game deserves its shot. And I think that, turning off an entire wing of games because it's heavy, those are complicated, those are frustrating, those aren't, and I'm not willing to do that. And so even though I've had a few games where I've felt like I was serving a jail sentence, stuck at the table, I still keep on constantly foraying into heavy games and finding that when the stakes are that much higher, the reward is much better than what I can get from a lighter game. And that's just, why I keep coming back. And also, you know, it's almost like a little bit of a masochism. Like I keep on trying to get my buddy to call himself the mathicist, that he just like, you know, he's like, I want to be abused by a math book. That's what he wants to feel after finishing a game.
Clay and I were both guests on the Botch Games podcast, and I remember vividly Craig describing Arkwright as looking like a spreadsheet on the table during that podcast, and we were talking about it, and I'm like, the Mathicist is perfect for games like that, right? Where it's like, you look at that and you're like, well, I really like Microsoft Excel, I got this, you know? So
yeah,
for sure.
One final thought, and this is, I think, a little very loudly vocal part of heavy gamers are those that like it because it's a niche, because they're the only ones that like it, and you better get the hell away from it. And if there's people trying to bring people into heavier games, it's like, no, this is my thing. It's weird. Let me keep heavy games weird because this is all I've got.
Heavy gamer hipsterism?
Kind of, man. I'm telling you, it exists. It exists. There was a recent discussion on 18xx games that was like, you know.
Okay, time out.
Yeah.
Okay,
you take him.
That word. You're in a different ballpark, buddy.
Yep. Yeah. Train gamers are their own critters, man. That is a whole different. No, it really is. As soon as you involve train gamers,
but it's the same way with war gamers. It really is.
And they are also their own critters.
I'm not willing to totally relegate them. Like, to me, you can still like war games and not be of that crowd. I think that there is just, it doesn't matter what it's about. You can even just be like the person who is super, super into abstracts or something. And is, you know, like, if you're not the Go champion, then you're not worth talking about. You know, to me, it's people that want the hobby to be something that is special to them. And yeah, and it's been that way for them for a while. And maybe those are why some of those corners of the hobby are shrinking, even though the hobby's expanding.
Yeah. Well, and with all due respect to Jake and Danielle of the Draft Mechanic podcast, if I ever hear people start to try and popularize the term craft board games, I'm rage quitting this entire industry because I don't want, I really, really don't want us as a culture, as a weird little subculture. Because remember, we are a niche inside a niche inside a niche, right?
Yes,
like we are like niche cubed deep in all of this stuff. Okay. The last thing we need to do is perpetuate some sort of myth that what we're doing is only for us, because that's just dumb. That is a good way to break an industry. So no, I don't want to truck with any of that nonsense.
Heavy gamers sometimes get branded as that because of a few vocal people. And I think that it's not so much that train gamers lend themselves to that or war gamers lend themselves to that. It's just that, you know, there's a few people that are very vocal that say those types of things. And I'm right with you there, Bill.
Well, those people need to be tased. I'm sorry. Wait, what did I say that out loud? All right, sorry. Clay.
Don't tase me, bro. Don't tase
me. All right, Clay. Come at this from a slightly different angle. And there's a reason I saved you for last here. You are not only somebody that enjoys heavy games, but you are somebody that goes out of your way to publish heavy games. So what is it about that? Like, where is that confluence for you? It isn't just that you like these games. It's also that you want to bring these games to a wider audience. Walk us through that for you.
Yeah. So obviously I enjoy heavier games. I mean, that's something I think it's just my personality where I like a challenge. And as I started in this industry in 2010, just playing different games, I got bored with the lighter stuff. Like a modern day Splendor. I mean, that's a really good design. It's very nice and fun. My wife and I, we played it like 10 times. I just get bored with it. I don't know. It's just, there's nothing really to discover after you've played it a few times. You kind of get the gist of it and you know what's going to happen. Whereas with a heavy game, like when I first played Arkwright, it was similar to the Gallerist, where it was like, okay, wow, that was an intense ride and I know what I'm doing. And then you develop a strategy at the end of your game, and with heavier games, you have a tendency, at least I do, to think about them more so than other games after you're done playing them. So you develop a strategy, and then the next time it gets to the table, you're going to play that strategy. But then all of a sudden, you think you got all your ducks in a row. Something from left field comes in there and just completely diverts your plan, and you discover something brand new with the game. this will happen for like, I don't know, a ton of different plays as you play this game. And I love that about them. And they're not that complicated like you guys were talking about. Once you understand or just play a couple turns, it begins to click and it draws you in, it pulls you in, and before you know it, you're done with the game. A lot of people are intimidated by the heavier games, and that's what I'm working on is to lower that barrier to entry that Joe was talking about, and just get more people comfortable with trying it. And because that's what I'm all about too, is like getting people to try stuff. And so I'm a big proponent of it, and I think that people will realize there's a lot more game that you get when you buy like a Capstone game. There's a lot more that you're going to be. It's going to last on the shelf longer. Yeah, exactly.
When you buy a Capstone game, yeah,
you're getting more.
Nice. No, I actually totally agree. It's funny that we're all here together now because I borrowed Arkwright originally from Brandon when I was there visiting him. Brought it back here, played it, and then he told me I had to give it back, which made me really sad. But I remember thinking as I was playing this game, wow, this is the kind of game that you can get lost in really easily because there is so much more. And that's how I felt. Like my all-time favorite game is Eclipse. I'm super vocal about it all the time. And part of the reason that I love Eclipse so much is because once you get the hang of how the game works, all of those different races and all of the variety that comes in that box means that every game you're going to be exploring a new facet of how that game works that you maybe haven't played before, or at least haven't fully explored. And so I just get such a sense of accomplishment out of those plays because I always feel like I'm learning more, even about a thing that I already love. And so I think that for me, it's that depth, right? It's that ability to just keep going and diving in. That's so cool. So, all right. Speaking of, I want to talk a little bit about the tag epic games because epic games and heavy games sometimes get conflated. Like I feel like they're fairly often people attach one to the other. And I would argue that all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares when it comes to epic and heavy, right? Like some of these games definitely count and some of them do not. Like I would never think of the Gallerist as an epic game as an example, but Eclipse absolutely. And I don't know what the difference is, but heavy games definitely lend themselves better to the epic game moniker, but I can't really figure out why. And normally when I come in with one of these questions, I'm handing it off being like, I already have an opinion. What do you think? This one, no clue. I legitimately have no idea where I land on this. This is, again, I'm sorry to keep using the same comparison, but this is that I know it when I see it argument, right? Like you just know some games are epic and some games aren't, but heavy games lend themselves in this direction, right? Maybe? What do you think? Like is Arkwright epic?
If you play Waterframe, it'll have that feel when you're done.
Yeah.
Like, wow. I think, okay, so for me, I'm just kind of brainstorm real quick, but like when I play a game and if I say at the end, I'm like, okay, that was epic. There were a lot of different storylines within the game, and a lot of different, it was like a movie. You've got this scene that happened, and then all of a sudden this scene happened, and then boom, 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 boom. There's all these different scenes. Whereas with a game that's not epic, it's just kind of like the Gallerist, which isn't to me an epic game. I agree with you. It just started and finished, and
and it's
we all
great.
kind of progressed together.
And it's important that we draw the distinction, right? That just because we say something isn't epic doesn't mean it isn't a fantastic game. I mean, it's still a great game. It's just a different feel. Like
with Dominant Species, I played that recently, and it's a longer game. I think longer games will typically have that. Hey, that was epic. Especially if you're over 2 hours, some people might just automatically say it was epic. But with Dominant Species, there's so much change and so much storylines. Like, oh, do you remember when the Earth was structured like this, and I only had 3 cubes, and then like a couple turns later, all of a sudden I have all my cubes all over the board. I don't know if that even makes what.
I would say that I think that there's some overlap, like you said, and I think that your statement, not all squares are rectangles, and I think that somewhat can be to that aspect. I posed this question. I was like, is Twilight Imperium 3, is that a heavy game? Is it actually a heavy game? Because you're sitting there at the table all day, you're playing this game, and it's certainly epic, right? I mean, it certainly is like this epic space opera is how all of its fans, you know, like that's what they say. That's we just talked about this in the long view, and it's, you know, it's this epic story that unfolds. But, you know, is it a heavy game? Because the thing is, so much of it is not going to, your decisions that you're making are not going to necessarily impact the actual outcome of the game. I think that it really just depends on what you define as being heavy. You know, is heavy to you like how deep and how intricate the story is told? Because I think that if that's the case, then sure, epic games are all heavy. Right. You know, Arkham Horror is a heavy game. Arkham Horror is epic. Whatever, you know, if that's specifically what you game for. For me specifically, it's, you know, it's not that heavy of a game if the decisions I'm making aren't going to have, like we've kind of established at the beginning here, the sort of butterfly effects as the game progresses, and also, you know, like when I look at the board and see, you know, it's not just immediately apparent to me that, oh, hey, I'll get 7 points if I do this, and I'll only get 6 if I do this. There's always like layer upon layer, and you've got to parse through what it is specifically that you're looking at. So, I mean, I know I hope I haven't like gone too much far away from the question, but to talk about a game that I think would be epic to me at the same time as being very heavy, would be like Advanced Civilization, the initial, you know, the first one, Francis Tresham's Advanced Civilization, which then inspired Sid Meier's game, which then inspired Through the Ages, which one's heavier, Through the Ages or Advanced Civ? And to me, Advanced Civ is just epic because you start from like a you know, a little shit on the board to just huge, and you're acquiring all these things. But that game still doesn't have tons of rules complexity. So is it heavy? I mean, it's.
I think Paul in the chat room phrased it in a way that I really like, and I think even if we disagree, I think this is a good jumping off point to take this topic home. His words, and I quote him directly: "Epic games have a narrative arch with potential peak story moments." And I think that's a really good way to say it, right? Is that
Clay was saying it like that too, in a way. I think it just, I don't know. We sat there and we played an 18.8 XX. I'm not feeling that story that you get from like playing the same length of a game with, say, you know, the Eclipse or with anything like that.
Right. Yeah, and go ahead. And don't even go there, Joe.
Dude, no,
Joe, it's been great to have you on the show.
Did I say something?
You know what? Here I am defending 18xx's, and I'm the guy in the group that has this reputation for being like the light, fluffy gamer that won't play any of them. But I'm going to stand up and say, if you look at those train companies and the way that they there is a narrative arc to the specific investors and the way the investors get paid and what happens to the railway companies. I mean, you'll have a railway company that is a house of cards, as they say, you know, which runs really strong and then just dies out when it rusts. I mean, there is some pretty big narrative arches that are playing out. It's just, it's within the theater that's not as popular.
I was going to say, but who's going to play it for that narrative arc? Who really plays 18xx to feel like that?
Do we have to be experiencing fantasy for something to be epic? Does it have to be history?
No, it doesn't have to be fantasy. It just has to be kind of something you feel when you're doing it. I mean, and I may be the complete outlier here. When I played it, I'd see mechanics. That's what an 18xx game is.
I'm not saying, remember, dude,
I don't see that
more
story.
Of an idea than an opinion here. I'm arguing an idea that I may or may not even support.
No, you're fine.
I'm just saying. Behalf.
I think that you make a really good point that, and it really, and God, this is going to sound really mamby-pamby and wishy-washy, but I think that narrative, really, we're trying to lock in a descriptive word, right? Which isn't going to be easily locked in. We're all coming at this from what we feel is epic. But at the end of the day, there are, I mean, this is why, actually, Joe, this is why Clay and I both started flailing like Kermit when you talked about heavy gamers and train gamers and XX people, because there is an entire segment of gamerdom that does view 18x games as having that arc and want to tell that story over and over again. The problem is they are niche to the fourth, right? Because they're a niche within a niche within a niche within a niche, or whatever. Sorry, that was a terrible attempt at a callback there. But you get my point? Like that, there are people that are definitely going to look at games through that lens. I would just argue that they are a vocal but present minority that most of the rest of gamerdom at large would have a hard time empathizing with. Does that make sense? I don't
think most of gamerdom doesn't have many experiences with those types of games in the first place. I mean, I had a miserable experience with my first 18xx, Brandon, and I wanted to never touch the entire thing again. And out of the 12 or 13 games I've now played in person of 18xx games after that first one I hated, there's been more experiences that left me unfulfilled than there have been ones that I actually enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And I still here am not prepared to say that there's not a narrative arc if the story that you're looking for is something like, imagine Drunk Histories about robber barons, man. There's your epic story arc. Yeah. I mean, there it is happening. You know, you got That's true. Some expert who's just drunk and talking about how this guy came in and slammed a wad of cash down on the table, bought one share and worked his way, started actually as a rail worker. I mean, But I'm just saying, who goes into an 18xx game wanting that? We go into games of Twilight Imperium wanting those stories and living those moments. You're right. It's more secondary. I will accept that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Matt in the chat room wanted to point out that you played 12 to 13 18xx games and you consider yourself a light gamer. He has questions.
A light gamer. I don't consider myself a heavy gamer or a light gamer, man. I'm just
a gamer. I
just play whatever, man.
By the way,
Joe likes to take them for the team.
Jake and Danielle from Draft Mechanic are indeed watching on their Apple TV, and I'm sorry, not sorry that they were talking crap about your craft stuff. Just throwing that out there. All right. So I wanted to quickly hit on one other thing that I was kind of thinking about, and we talked about the rule books before, okay? But there is a difference between heavy and complex, and this has been talked. The chat room has been having, by the way, a fantastic time discussing some of these more detailed aspects of this. That unfortunately, in an hour-long show, we can't really dive as deep as everybody is, which sucks. But I'll tell you right now, if you're listening to this after the fact on the audio for your ear holes version of the show, I cannot urge you enough to join us live, because the chat room is really where 3/4 of the great content that we do is at. We have a great time in here. So there's my stupid little cheap plug. But as a great example, in I think it's 2 weeks, the Hoopla, since you had mentioned it, I get to do a little tie-in. The Hoopla is doing their mini Hoopla this fall, and I am teaching High Frontier 3rd Edition at it.
You have that game? You're gonna play that game? Andy threatens me with that game as if it's like a nightmare that I would wake up in the middle of cold sweats in the middle of the night. Your rocket blew up, Joe. Your whole game is over.
I love that game. I think that it is one of the few games that I think I played in maybe the last, I would say it's probably the top 10 most unique gaming experiences I've had this decade. Like it provides a gaming experience that I don't think I've gotten from basically anything else. And it's not perfect, but man, is it fun. But that rule book is so impenetrable. I'm sorry, rule books. I apologize. There are, I believe, 3 of them that come in that thing, and the one that says read this first is the one you have to read second, and it's all very confusing. But anyway, the point is that Phil Eklund can't seem to write a rule book to save his life, but his games are great, right? But his rule books are terrible. They're always
fascinating, though. Like, I just read my first one, PAX Renaissance.
Yeah. Oh, that's so bad.
It was I was so entertained, man. I felt like I was watching an amazing lecture from a professor at college. Like, it was like the thesis of the game was all right there in the footnotes. I was so entertained by that. And yes, I mean, don't get me wrong, it was like GMT, but GMT to like the 10th degree, where it's like, yeah, good luck actually learning this game. There's no real way that it teaches you how to play. You just kind of gotta accept that you're going to be taking the rule book all the time.
Any game that makes me look at the rule book that many times makes me insane. But yeah,
how did you get to High Frontier?
Because once you're playing, you don't really need to look in the rule book that much. Once you're in the game and you understand the basic systems, the rule book really isn't that necessary. It's weird, but it's not. Like, it's awful to learn, but once you have it, you have it, which is why I'm going to teach it at a convention.
I read Eklund rule books for the education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you can learn a lot for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. I could see just reading the rule book to these games. I would not enjoy playing a game like, say, Greenland or what's the other one that's highly Neanderthal or Greenland. I would not enjoy playing those games, but they're extremely heavy rule books that really do inform you about the situation. You know, like this specific slice of history of paleontology, sort of, and I think that the game itself, to me, you know, is it actually a heavy game, or is it more just a heavy rule set to teach you a simulation, you know, like something that's more to teach you than to play?
I just want to chime in on this guy real quick.
Get him, Clay.
So my first rule book that I've read was PAX Renaissance, and I like to get to the point when I'm reading a rule book, and
yeah.
So you whip it out and you open the first page and you're like, okay, during the Renaissance, footnote 1. Okay, footnote. This must be like a Renaissance must be like a key word. And it's like you look down at the bottom and you're like, what do you know about the Renaissance? And it's like, this guy's freaking taunting me right now with his little rule book. And like you go through the whole rule book and there's all these footnotes at the bottom and you're just like, what the crap, dude?
I'm sitting in a lecture. I'm not learning a game.
I know. Put that in a little separate booklet. Give that to me as a separate booklet, but let's focus on the rules because that's what I want to know. I want to know how to play it. But yeah, I do enjoy that though. I love the anecdotes and all the footnotes, and I love it. But
yeah, if you want to learn,
describe them together with GMT as like ironclad. Like once you know the game and you're just using it as a reference, those GMT rule books are like beyond thorough, easy to reference. Like that's where they're a tool, and they're much more of a tool to play the game than to learn the game. And when GMT tries to do the play, you get the 46-page rule books when they try to do the like play by play, scene by scene, and that to me is what always like it seems like it always forces you to just play a game with all the randomness taken out, and to me, it's not a good way to learn the game, even the way they have it structured.
Yeah, the difference is I think you can learn a game out of a GMT rulebook. It's just dry and uninspired. It is actively difficult to learn a game out of a Phil Eklund rulebook. Like actually learning how to play out of at least High Frontier was like I was frantically searching for walkthrough videos and whatever in order to just learn how to play the damn game. Not how to play it well, just literally figure out what I'm doing. And once I got it, I'm great, which is why I'm going to teach it, right? So because I don't want to put anybody else through that, but I think it's a cool thing that everybody should experience. But I got you. So all right. So in closing, we're gonna be doing a rapid fire segment. We're bringing back rapid fire by popular demand because people have talked about it numerous times that they miss the rapid fire segment. So both Clay and Joe, you are going to be under the gun tonight for this one. But
are we head to head? Can we be head to head?
It's not really how that works.
No,
we'll come back to that.
It's not a race.
It's not a race. It's not a race. But what I want to say is, what is the game that you think if you wanted to show somebody what you considered the best heavy game you've ever played, what's the game that you would put on the table in front of them?
Clay.
Hey, Clay, go first.
Like the best game is like okay, I'll say Indonesia because that's an economic system that'll change from game to game. The rules are pretty simple. It takes a turn or two to really get it, and that's a beautiful system, and every game is going to be completely different, and that'll really get people into heavier games.
Okay. Joe, I'm making you go next.
Oh my goodness, dude.
Your life is hard. You can do it. I believe it.
I don't have a direction I come at, though. That's the thing, Bill. Like, I guess I'm looking for the same sort of decisions. I'm fine with any Splotter game virtually. I would say, you know what? I'm just gonna be really boring here, and I'm gonna piggyback off of Clay, but I'm not gonna say Indonesia. I'm gonna say if you come at it from a Euro angle, like I kind of came into heavy games from the Euro side, pick a great Splotter. Great Zimbabwe is an excellent way to me. It's got the sort of heavy things you'd expect, but it plays a lot quicker. I do love Indonesia. That's if you're like, that's kind of almost a train game in a different environment. Yeah, it's long, but to me, it justifies its length. I like how at 5 players it's shorter, but I'm going to say Great Zimbabwe, and that's not to downplay any of the other games that are out there that are heavy games that I know and love. It's just that was what Clay planted as an idea in my head by saying Indonesia.
Hey, you got to pick one. Brandon, how about you?
Right now, and it's going to be limited experience for me. You got to understand that I don't do a whole lot of heavy games and things like that. I've played the Gallerist and the Vinos and the things like that, but I would go with something like the Colonists right now, simply because of the ease of getting into the game and getting started, and kind of showing basically that first age is just a teaching kind of thing to go through.
It is.
And then it just builds and builds and builds.
It's astonishing how easy that game is to teach for how big and heavy it is. It really is.
5 minutes, you can teach it and get it going if somebody knows anything remotely modern Euro.
My pick is obvious. It's Eclipse, because
I was so worried that you were going to say that. It's just your favorite game. It's not a real answer.
It is right. It is a real answer. It's the heavy game that I think people can jive with the most, because it also it grabs from all different genres of gaming, right? There's Ameritrash dice chucking and blowing stuff up. There's the Euro side of like resource management and action, and not overspending or overextending yourself. There's an exploration side of it. It's that game. It's that game for me. All right. By the way, the chat room took on the question as well. It looks like Lisboa from Paul. I still haven't played that yet, Paul, but I need to.
Yeah.
Kanban. Kanban was in my top 3 that I was going to say. Through the Ages was the other one of those top 3. So
I would say the chat kind of had a consensus that they were more about rules complexity when going heavy. So those to me, like those have a lot more like rules complexity, systems that are interlocking. Whereas I think we went with more like impact, butterfly effect. Me and Clay kind of decided on that. A little bit of a different definition, but I definitely see, that is a great exemplary pick. Vital games are great for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Also sees Terra Mystica, my first love.
Terra Mystica is lovely.
Yeah, I was just discussing that, or was talking about that on there. I've played 45 games of Terra Mystica, and I don't consider it that heavy.
Yeah, I don't really either.
It's a lot of planning, but
those are my first heavy games. Like back when I started playing it was heavy, but now that I've played other things,
and this comes back to that sliding scale of trying to lock in a specific word to me, which is going to mean different things to different people, right? Like I know a lot of people that think that Power Grid is one of the heaviest games they've ever experienced because of all the math involved. Well, okay, math makes it feel heavy to some people. God save you if you try to play Arkwright if you can't do math. I'm just throwing, you know what I mean? Like I love Arkwright, but that's no, but it's just, this is all a sliding scale, and this is, we can't say this enough, viewers / listeners / chat room people, is, this is, we can only come at this from our points of view and from our experiences, but this is going to mean different things to different people. So what I want to do, if you didn't have a chance to get into the chat and tell us all these things, by the way, I don't want to skip over other people. We had Through the Ages, of course, and Sid Meier's Civilization. 18XX got mentioned a couple of times. Yeah, lots of really good choices here. If you have feedback on any of the questions that you've heard us and you want to weigh in on this stuff, we would love to get viewer mail. Hit us up at thecubistpodcast@gmail.com, or you can contact us straight through the website. We'd love to hear from all of you, especially those of you listening on the audio podcast that don't get to be here live and weigh in. Always love to hear feedback. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we are bringing back Rapid Fire. It is time for a Rapid Fire segment. For those of you that have not
Rapid Fire,
here we go. So here's how Rapid Fire works. Each one of our special guests is going to get 5 unique questions, and they have to answer them as quickly as they can. The rules are really simple. You cannot repeat the same answer that you gave for a previous question. You cannot repeat the question back in an effort to buy yourself time so you can and ah through whatever your answer is about to be. And you're not going to get the same questions as the last guys, so don't think for a second, Joe, that you're going to get to cheat off of Clay, because we're going to make Clay go first.
No.
Clay, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off. You're going first, buddy.
I think we gave you good questions, Clay. You'll be good.
Brandon,
I have Essen on my mind, so sorry.
Hey.
Brandon and I worked on the questions together, so I've gotten a little bit of help on this one this week. So, Clay Ross of Capstone Games, are you ready?
Yeah, I think.
I've never heard somebody respond with less confidence in my life. All right, Clay. Here we go. Clay, your favorite route building game?
favorite route building game would be. Oh my gosh, why is this so hard? Is Indonesia a route building game?
Sure.
I'm gonna go that route.
Close enough. All right, Clay, the game that is the capstone of your personal collection.
Yeah. I mean,
there you go.
That's my baby.
That's your baby. A game that you think has a bad reputation you don't understand. So, like, you don't understand the reputation.
Like why it's got a bad reputation.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Bad. Hard. Again, I don't know. Why is this so hard?
The answer, Clay, is I understand everything, and thus there is no answer.
Yeah.
I guess Alchemist would be the one I would pick.
Very good. All right, a perfect whiskey and board game pairing.
Okay, you're gonna play Wildcatters after Essen, and you're gonna have Michter's US1 small batch bourbon.
I love it. All right, and last but not least, the first game you're going to buy when you get to Essen.
Wildcatters. Does that count?
I didn't hear you.
You can't say the same thing.
Can't repeat.
Same thing. The first game I want to buy is Antiquity. I'm buying Antiquity.
Antiquity. There you go. Very good. Nicely done, Clay. You only cheated twice. That's not bad. You only repeated the question back to me a couple times. That's not terrible. That's not terrible. I know. That's half of why we do this. Joe,
Yes.
Joe, Sallen.
So my questions are all different?
They are all different, sir.
I have mine prepared now.
Aha, that's why we do it this way. Joe Sallen from the Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Are you prepared?
I'm here.
All right, here we go. Joe, the podcast that inspired you to start podcasting yourself.
Oh, wow. There's more than one there. And it would be the Longview and the Dice Tower Showdown.
Very good.
Those two.
Your favorite partnership game.
What's an example of a partnership game? I
Team versus
Teach
team.
You.
Okay.
I don't play very many partnership games.
Euchre.
Professional
Oh,
podcasting.
shoot.
ladies
Yeah,
and gentlemen.
okay. Euchre, I guess. Yeah,
There you go.
Euchre.
Outstanding. All right. A game that people think has more strategies than it really does.
1830.
Okay, very good. What board game do you want to play with Clint Eastwood?
I would play Innis.
There you go.
Why not?
And the ugliest game that you love.
Anything by Splotter. I love turning around that box and being like, look at how beautiful the game is, and it's that white on the back. So, and I'm gonna already break a rule here, and I'm gonna say, except there was this one game called Don't Turn Your Back that had the most hideous art direction I've ever seen, and I didn't love it that much, but it just was hilariously bad. So yeah, Google that one. Don't Turn Your Back. That artwork was like something like a combination of Saw and like Word 2003.
Yeah, nice. By the way, Chad in the live chat was answering along with your set of rapid fire, and but he didn't identify with which question was going with which. So I'm assuming that his answer to the Clint Eastwood one was Kama Sutra. I'm gonna assume that that's the one that pairs up with.
There you go. Yes,
Chad. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors, sir, with your Hollywood game playing. If that works out for you, let me know. Please don't take pictures. All right. Ladies and gentlemen,
rapid fire is a heavy game.
There you go. It is. It definitely has.
It melted my brain, man. I felt like, oh, Clay's so stuck, and I feel like I underperformed you, Clay.
No way, man. You were quicker than me.
You guys both did fantastic. Everybody that comes on this show eventually ends up being under this particular gun. So I think you both did great. Neither one of you answered Milton Bradley to anything, so you're already winning. All right.
Oh, Carson City, crap! Oh my god! Come on. That's so like this is so screwed. My skill set is so against this. I cannot think of things right away, man.
Remember how you all were saying that you wanted to shout things, or in the pre-show, Joe was talking about how he used to shout at his podcast when he was listening to Dice Tower Showdown. I may or may not have given myself a cheap compliment there. Sorry about that. But
oh no, that was a cheap compliment there. But I was like, I said one of my main inspirations, so I had to give credit there. So, but yeah, Bill, perfect. It was so much of that, man. To get me started in podcasting was, it wasn't that same angle like you said, like when you meet somebody and they're like, I remember you from that show. You're the guy that's always wrong. No, it wasn't that bad. I loved the dynamic of two people with vastly different perspectives coming on to a show. And to me, like, that's the time when you get to like the deeper truth, and I guess a wishy-washy, whatever, but I miss that, dude. I miss you doing that. That was,
we might have to work on something. We'll see what we can do. So, all right, let's go around the room and talk about all the stuff that you got that you want to plug. This is your cheap plug moment, gentlemen. Let's start with you, Clay. Clay, you're going to be at Essen. Are you going to be there as Capstone Games, or are you just going to play and buy games?
No, we have a full booth. It's in Hall 6. Yeah, Hall 6. There's 8 halls, I think, this year. So nice. We are in the 6th hall, booth I-104. We're debuting Wildcatters. That's our new area control, logistics, a little bit of bidding in there. Yeah, and we took the production to the next level on that game. I'm really excited for people to see it.
Outstanding. So, all right, if our viewers / listeners wanted to know more about you and what you do, and let's say they don't happen to be going to Essen, where would we send them?
Just go to capstone-games.com. We have links to all of our Twitter and Facebook, Instagram. It tells you a little bit about our games and what our philosophy is behind our publishing arm. So, do you have a subscription list? We do. At the very bottom of our homepage, you'll see subscribe here and put your email address in there, and we'll get you taken care of.
Outstanding. Very good. Very good. How about you, Joe?
Well, I'd like to start off by plugging, and I feel like I have to do this because otherwise I'm going to be sleeping on the couch tonight. I've got my in-shrink copy of Carson City because I've got my other out-of-shrink copy on the shelf, but it's actually I've had to keep it at my school where I can show people because it's got my wife is in this game. Her artwork is in this game, and I feel like
very cool.
Yeah, she's the teacher.
Not only did you get your rapid fire question wrong, but you failed to do a shout out to your wife in the middle of it.
This is right. Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah. So to advertise my show, it's about that level of train wreck, except you get to watch it play out over roughly an hour and 30 minutes. And I've got two great friends from my local game group that join me most weeks, and we just recently adopted TC Reed of the Tattered Board to join us on The Good, the Board, and the Ugly, which is a podcast that's pretty much similar in structure to the Cubist, but vastly different, I think, in that it's a lot more, I feel like, discussion, like we're a lot more free flowing, and I would say that, like, if you like the way that I sort of derail so many topics as we're trying to go here, if you like that sort of difficult, like I'm not willing to just let this face value go with anything, then check out The Good, the Board, and the Ugly. We do reviews and discuss a specific topic, and we always hype what we're looking forward to. I got my several different projects that's going on right now. I actually inherited, together with TC Reed, the Longview podcast, which I would posit is the first heavy board gaming podcast. The first one that really the premise of the Longview is started by Jeff Gamble, and he basically was to talk about a single game and to talk about that specific game at length, like an hour to an hour and a half. And if that's not tailor-made for heavy games, I mean, you look at Heavy Cardboard, they do that same structure when they review games. Their podcast is like 45 minutes to an hour dedicated to that. So, I mean, the original heavy game podcast, The Longview. So check that out. And if you find a game that we've not covered, which you can check that out at thelongviewpodcast.com, and you'd like to be a guest on the Longview podcast, send me a message. I'm on Board Game Geek. You can send it to longviewpodcast@gmail.com, but don't expect me to respond to that immediately. There's a lot of different emails I've got going now, man.
Well,
Vanilla counts.
that all sounds awesome. We've actually been doing something similar with our deep dive series of episodes where we take one song or one game and go like 40, 45 minutes on it. So we've had a lot of fun with that too. That's awesome. Very
Really
good.
cool.
So the good, the board, the ugly, and the long view are
Yeah,
all...
that's not all, man. I've also just started some video reviews. So I'm just dipping my hand into it. It's kind of the same structure as the way that we're broadcasting right now to a live audience and stuff, but I'm a little bit more prepared with those. But I'm not much for video editing, so don't come looking for like that sort of professional 5-minute beautiful game. And I'm not going to tell you anything about how it actually plays because I've got a $7,000 camera and $2,000 worth of editing equipment, and I'm just into games because they look pretty. No, I'm going to tell you about the game, and that goes forever too. So if you like talking about games and listening to somebody talk at length, check out all the stuff I do. That's me. Thank you so much for letting me say all that.
Absolutely. I'm not sure I could have stopped you if I'd have wanted to, Joe. You're on a roll.
Brent, you're going to get trampled.
You're the best. You're the best. Brandon, how about you?
You can find me on the What Did You Play This Week podcast, a weekly podcast. Actually, it's going to not be weekly after next week.
Spoilers.
So, yeah, week 150 will be the last weekly episode, and then we're going to go every other week. Just to kind of lighten the load, and then we're going to throw in conversation episodes on Sundays and try to get more attention to those for good old Patrick. But you can find me on What Did You Play This Week podcast at WDYPTW or at VACABCK all over the Twitterverse and anywhere else that I should be. I usually am.
For sure.
I'm here.
I want to take a moment first off to plug the chat room. Chat room, you guys have been fantastic tonight in keeping the conversation going. I love the live interaction. Half of the reason that I do this show, I'm not going to lie, when I first relaunched the Cubist as this video show, I did it because I didn't want to edit anymore because editing was sucking all of the fun out of this for me, and I just wanted to do a thing. True. So we launched it that way, and what we have discovered is that we have a viewership full of smart, fun people that are in the chat room talking every week. So I cannot urge you this enough. If you get subscribe to the Cubist podcast on YouTube, get in here for these live chats. They are so much fun. But if you can't do that for whatever reason, you can find the video version of this at thecubistpodcast.com, or you can go to Punchboard Media. We are a proud member of Punchboard Media, where we all
bring something to the table. You're supposed to let the other person do that.
I'm sorry. Where we all bring something to the table. Yes. So you can go to punchboardmedia.com and find our content and lots more. You can also get this for your ear holes. We are on iTunes, and we have a direct RSS feed for you Android nerds that don't believe in real podcast serving. Wait, what? I don't know. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy this and you want to support the show directly, you can pledge to us through Patreon. We have a Patreon right at the top of thecubistpodcast.com. You can also buy merch. We've got the banana pants shirts, and we've got our Cubist logo shirts that you can pick up there. And more importantly, well, is it more? Yeah, it's more importantly because it's for charity. Two quick charity things I want to mention. Number one, the mini hoopla, the latest gaming hoopla thing is in 2 weeks. That is October 20th through the 22nd. I will be there all 3 days. I will be there for the entirety of Friday and most of Saturday and Sunday, playing games with people and teaching games, including High Frontier on Friday afternoon. If you're an insane person, come play a Phil Eklund game with me. And then on Halloween, on October 30th, I am going to be doing a 24-hour gaming marathon for the Extra Life charity to benefit the Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. So if you would like to donate to that, or you can hit BillCoreyJr.com. I guess I went and bought a vanity domain just to make it easy to have people donate. Go to BillCoreyJr.com, make your donation there for the charity. We're going to live stream as much of it as we possibly can. If you feel like making a donation that is not monetary, say for instance games that you want us to give away during the live stream or anything like that, you can email us at thecubistpodcast@gmail.com. Wow, I almost said that wrong and got emails going to nowhere. Thecubistpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out. Thanks, Clay and Joe, for being guests. Brandon, you are my rock. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Chat room, you're amazing. We will catch you all again next week. Everybody have a great week gaming. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.